a sprinter powerfully explodes off the starting blocks, channeling massive kinetic energy into a single forceful forward drive. At this level of intensity, the human body faces an immense mechanical challenge. If the body were just an unorganized cluster of identical cells, it wouldn't be able to withstand the sudden tension of that push-off. The sheer force would simply rip it apart. To survive this physical stress, individual cells organize and interlock into highly specialized groups called tissues, working together to execute specific tasks. Completing a single sprinting stride requires the high-speed, sequential coordination of 4 specific tissue types. First, the nervous tissue, next, the muscular tissue, then the connective tissue, and finally, epithelial tissue. Without these 4 distinct cellular networks interlocking to distribute the physical load, complex, high-speed human movement is impossible. Every movement begins before a single physical muscle twitches. Deep inside the brain, nervous tissue fires off the electrical impulses that initiate the sprint. This diagram shows a single neuron, the highly specialized foundational cell of the nervous system. You can see how these root-like structures, the dendrites, branch out to receive incoming signals, feeding that electrical data directly into the central cell body, or cyton. That signal then flashes away from the cell body down a thin, elongated structure called the axon. Because it's wrapped in an insulating covering called a myelin sheath, the electrical impulse travels rapidly over long distances, down the spinal cord and straight into the legs. Nervous tissue functions as the body's essential wiring. It delivers commands to the physical machinery in a fraction of a second, ensuring the signal reaches its destination without losing strength. The exact moment that electrical signal hits the athlete's leg, the data translates directly into physical force. We can see that translation happening in this animated diagram of striated muscles. These are skeletal muscles, made of long, cylindrical cells with distinct light and dark bands, and they execute voluntary, conscious movements to pull the leg forward. While the athlete consciously drives their legs, other muscles operate entirely involuntarily. These unstriated or smooth muscles have spindle-shaped cells that rhythmically contract along the digestive tract, so the runner can focus completely on the race. Then there is cardiac muscle, found only in the heart. These branched cells with single nuclei are also involuntary, working tirelessly to pump blood throughout the entire body. Muscular tissue acts as a biological dual-engine system. It simultaneously powers the conscious drive to run while maintaining the unconscious functions that sustain life. But those muscular engines need something to pull against. This relies on connective tissue, defined by widely separated cells embedded within a non-living basic substance called a matrix. Looking at the microscopic structure of a bone in this diagram, you can see what happens when that matrix becomes hard and mineralized with calcium and phosphorus. Bone cells, or osteocytes, live in spaces between these concentric rings to maintain a rigid physical framework. If that matrix is softer and more flexible, it forms cartilage. Here, cells called chondrocytes provide essential cushioning at the joints, preventing the runner's bones from grinding against each other. To hold all this together, dense connective tissues act as mechanical tethers. Inelastic tendons lock the contracting muscle directly to the bone, while elastic ligaments connect bone to ensure the joints remain stable during movement. Without the rigid leverage and stabilized joints provided by these diverse matrices, the contracting muscular engine would have no scaffolding to pull against. Other connective tissues act as filler. Loose areolar tissue binds the skin directly to the underlying muscle, while adipose tissue uses fat cells to insulate the body and protect internal organs from mechanical trauma. Connective tissue can also take the form of a fluid. This diagram shows blood, utilizing a liquid matrix called plasma to carry oxygen-rich red blood cells, infection-fighting white blood cells, and platelets. Flowing alongside this is lymph, an additional watery network derived from interstitial fluid that specifically protects the biological system from infections. Together, these fluid and loose tissues act as the vital supply lines and shock absorbers required to sustain a high-energy biological event. Protecting this highly coordinated system is epithelial tissue. It is formed from tightly packed, interlocking cells with zero intercellular space, creating a continuous physical barrier. This cross-section of stratified epithelium demonstrates how multiple dense layers of these cells, infused with a tough protein called keratin, create the waterproof external barrier of human skin. Inside the body, simple epithelium uses just a single layer of cells to perform internal tasks. For example, ciliated columnar cells use these hair-like projections to actively propel air along the windpipe. Epithelial tissue serves as the critical seal, isolating the body's delicate internal synchronization from environmental hazards and dehydration. Returning to real time, we see the immediate result of this sequence. The athlete powerfully explodes off the blocks and launches into a flawless, full-speed stride. In 1 millisecond, nerves fired commands, muscles contracted on cue, bone matrices provided necessary leverage, and skin maintained the internal environment. Here is a challenge to test what you've learned. If an athlete suffers a joint injury, which tissue is damaged? Does a tendon connect bone to bone, or is it a ligament? These microscopic structures provide the physical framework for every human motion. Share your answer to the challenge in the comments, and subscribe to see more of how the body is built.